Hi guys, so today I just wanted to discuss what the Lord was speaking to me about. I am currently waiting on the Lord for him to, come through on the promises that he's given me. I have been in this journey for about the past 10 months where it has been just a lot. It's been something that I never thought I'd have to go through. And so when the Lord just gave me this revelation, it revived me, and it really helped me to understand further what he was doing. So I have my phone here that I took my notes on. Okay, so the Lord led me to read the book of Ruth. And so in the book of Ruth, I'm just gonna look at my notes and just go down because I don't want to say anything the Lord didn't reveal to me. But we all know, well, if you don't know, kind of the gist of the Ruth and Naomi story. I'm just gonna go through the whole chapter, and then I'll go through what the Lord revealed to me in the end. So Naomi heard of God's provision, and that prompted her to leave Moab and go to Bethlehem. So Ruth and her husband had left Bethlehem and went to Moab. And so at this point, Ruth's husband and two sons had passed away. And so Moab, there's a famine, but she heard that the Lord had came through and provided in a miraculous way in Jerusalem. So now she decides to go back. But she now has her two daughter-in-laws, Naomi and then the other daughter. And so she's telling them, look, I'm about to go back to my hometown, but I want you guys to go back to Moab. You guys should just go back to your hometown, find another husband. And so at first, both of them were like, no, we're gonna stay with you. And then she pushed further. Ruth was like, no, even if I were to get pregnant now, you would still have to are you gonna wait for the baby to grow older? If I were to even find a husband, da 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 da. And so the other daughter-in-law decided to leave, but Naomi decided to stay. And it says that specifically that she cleaved. And so in Hebrew, the word for cleave is davak, which means to be joined together, stick to, hold fast. And we can see the same word used in Genesis 2:24 when it says, a man leaves his father and mother and shall cleave to his wife. And then also in Deuteronomy 10:20 where it says, fear the Lord your God and hold fast to him. Also fear the Lord your God and cleave to him. So I thought that was interesting, right? So we see that Naomi wasn't just this wasn't a normal relationship that they had, right? She was sticking beside Ruth, Naomi. So they get back, right? And so Ruth hasn't been back home in a while. So you can imagine, I'm sure her friends, her family, like it says, were excited to see her. And yet Ruth tells them to call her by a different name, which I believe is Mara, because she felt as if the Lord had forsaken her. And there is a particular verse where she says, I left full and I came back empty. And that verse really, really hit me because the situation that I'm in now, that I am back in my hometown, which I didn't think would happen, right? And although I know it's something that's temporary, the last time that I was here, I was full in a sense, right? What Ruth is referring to is before she left home, she had her husband, she had her two sons, right? She was full. And now this time she's back, she's empty. And so for me, I'm in literally that same situation where the last time I was here, I was full. I had a job, I had this, I had that, I had an apartment. and now I'm empty, and I went through the most stretching season of my life with the Lord. And so he was like, that verse was like highlighted, and I really could relate to how Ruth was feeling, because at the start I'm like, okay, like Job, like, did I do something? Did I disobey the Lord in some way? Like, why is this happening? And as time went on throughout the journey, I was like, okay, well, I thought this was punishment from the Lord, but I'm starting to think that this isn't punishment from the Lord. So, now keep in mind that they get to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest, which is the Hebrew month of Nisan. And for us, that's like March to April. So Ruth is now, Ruth and Naomi, they're together, right? And so Ruth and her husband had land in Bethlehem, but he sold the land before they left. So now they have no land, they have no way of eating. So now Naomi, Naomi and Ruth, they need to eat. And so Ruth is now doing her best to provide for Naomi. Sorry, scratch that. Naomi's husband had land in Bethlehem and sold that land before they left. So they don't have any land. And that's usually how you would eat. You would, you have your land, you would, of course, get your harvest from there. So now Ruth takes it upon herself to be a faithful servant to Naomi and figure out how they're going to eat. So she suggests, hey, I know you have this relative, let me go and glean in their fields. And so it says that she happened upon Boaz's fields, right? So, and I think that's so beautiful, because Ruth was the willingness, and not just the willingness, but the determination that she had to not go back home, to be in a foreign country, and not just any foreign country. The history between the Moabites and the Israelites weren't good, because when they were in the wilderness, right, the Israelites were in the wilderness, the Moabites and them did not get along. So for her to have that courage to go somewhere where she knew people wouldn't necessarily like her, or be kind to her, that was such a bold move. And she wasn't just leaving family or people behind, she was also leaving idols behind. So she was choosing to go forward, have this courage to serve the Lord, and also be a servant to her mother-in-law. And so when she went in this field, gleaning was started in Leviticus. We go back to Leviticus. The Lord gives them the command, the Israelites a command, that when you have your fields, when you harvest from your fields, you should leave the leftovers for the needy, the orphans, the widows, etc. And so that's what gleaning was. Gleaning was you were pretty much getting the leftovers, the scraps. And so Ruth was going expecting leftovers, and the Lord had given her more than what she expected. So she gets to this field, she's gleaning upon the field. Boaz now comes on his field. He's talking to his harvesters, and he's like, wait, who is that? So then they tell her, they tell him like, hey, this is Naomi's, this is Naomi's daughter-in-law. She's been helping her out, etc., etc. So then he sees Ruth and he's like, look, I don't want you to go anywhere else. Don't go to any other field. I got you. Only come to my field. And matter of fact, follow after my maidservants. And he told the harvesters to drop more on purpose so that Ruth can pick up more. And so I guess to me, when I first read it, right, a while back, I'm thinking like, oh, this is just like regular kindness. He was just kind. But when you put into perspective how the Moabites and the Israelites did not get along. That's why Ruth's response was so like, you know, she literally got on her knees and was thanking him, because, you know, like that, I'm sure that was unheard of. She's not expecting this type of kindness, like, because she's a Moabite. And so Boaz went further to say that, you know, because of how she's been treating her mother-in-law, that not only will she get back what she's given, but she will have, in addition, a full reward on top of that. Then Boaz goes a step further and invites her to eat dinner. And so Ruth eats, but then she also makes sure that she has leftovers for Naomi to take home. And I think that she ended up leaving with like 1 ephah, like maybe, I think that's a barley. Don't quote me on that, but I think she ended up leaving with like a barley of, like 1 barley. So she goes back to, let me just make sure I'm reading this right. Now, when she goes back, mind you, let's go back. Naomi had just told her friends, the Lord has forsaken me, call me by a different name. I don't deserve to be called by Naomi, right? But then when Ruth comes back and says, oh, tells her everything, she immediately says that the Lord has not forsaken me. And that really hit me, because I'm sure she was like, okay, how are we about to eat? What I was used to, right? She was used to having a field. Naomi wasn't used to worrying about her daily needs. Naomi wasn't used to, you know, like she was used to having all of that taken care of and figured out, because, like I said, when they were in Jerusalem, they had a field until it was sold. And so I can only imagine that Naomi was probably thinking, it feels like I'm going backwards, right? It feels like I'm taking a step backwards. Like, how did my life get here? My husband's dead. My 2 sons are dead. I only have my daughter-in-law, right? How did I get here? And I feel like being in this season where the Lord is stripping you, where he's requiring you to depend on him daily, right? And then as you're slowly transitioning out of that into your promised land, into him fulfilling all of the things that he said he would, that is hard to kind of get out of that mindset of, you know, it's hard to not look around and be like, okay, nothing's happening. So I'm sure Naomi is like looking around like, okay, it feels like I'm going backwards. It feels like this, it feels like that. And it doesn't feel like anything is happening. And so for Ruth to come back and tell her all of those things, she's like, it's, you know, here it is. The purpose of why they are there was revealed in that instance. And I'm sure that Naomi had such relief, you know, she was praising the Lord, etc. So she tells Naomi to wash herself, to anoint herself, and to put on her best fit. And so Ruth, because Naomi tells Ruth to wait until after he's eaten and drinking and then watch where he sleeps. So Ruth had to watch Ruth had to watch Boaz from a distance until it was time for him to go to bed so that she can see where he sleeps. Another thing was Boaz was hearing of Ruth, and when Ruth's name was brought up, they were saying that she was a virtuous woman. And so when Ruth sat at his feet, or laid at his feet, uncovered his feet, and he got up, it wasn't like he had to think like, oh, you know, what type of woman, you know, is she gonna be that, is she gonna, no, like he knew what type of woman she was. And there was no, like, I don't know how I'm describing it, but like He didn't have to like think and like try to figure out, well, I don't know what type of woman you are, you know. Her reputation was a virtuous woman. So he gave her 6 bundles of barley and then promised that he would settle the matter. And another thing was, he wasn't just concerned about him being their redeemer. He wanted to make sure that whether it was him or someone else, that the matter was settled and that they were going to be okay. And I love the verse that says, Naomi told her to sit still, for the man will not rest until he has concluded the matter this day. And that just made me think about the Lord. Like, he watches over his promises. He makes sure that his promises come to pass. They never go unto him void. And I think sometimes when we're waiting, it can feel like, okay, Lord, you promised this. It's been this long, right? For me, I'm going on my 10th month in July. But you've promised all of this. I'm believing your promises. At the same time, you're like, okay, what's going on? And so keeping, like, when we remember that the Lord is watching over his promise, he is making sure that what he said to you is going to come pass. It's not just like, okay, I gave you a promise and, you know, I'm just going to give it to the angels, right, to fulfill that promise for you. No, he is making sure he himself is watching over the promise. And so that gave me hope, truly. So, yeah, so the Lord gave Boaz, So we know the ending, right? And Boaz goes, he makes sure that the other person that was in line to be her relative as her redeemer wasn't going to do it. He said he couldn't because it was something about like his inheritance or whatever. And so Boaz not only makes sure that he redeems Naomi, but he also makes sure that Ruth's name is also tied along to the property, so that he's redeeming her as well. And so Ruth goes on to have the child Obed, and Obed means servant. And that's truly what Ruth was. Her obedience and her being a servant was what led her to even be in this position. Had she gone to what was comfortable and gone back to what she's known, had gone back to, you know, staying at Moab, this wouldn't have happened. But because she wanted to serve, because she wanted to be obedient no matter what, no matter if it was uncomfortable, if people would look at her a different way. Like, I'm sure, like, there might have been people that, you know, looked at her differently because she was a Moabite, and a Moabite woman at that. So she had it even harder. But what the Lord revealed to me was from Obed, right? It's Boaz, Obed, Jesse, and then David. And here it is. Naomi is thinking the Lord had forgotten about her. Her family is gone. She only has a foreigner, her daughter-in-law that's a foreigner. She's going back. She's saying, I left full, I came back empty, I have nothing. And yet the whole time the Lord was establishing and building generations from Ruth. And it wasn't, and I think that's something that we miss, is the Lord, sometimes we're looking at one thing, right? And so we're thinking, okay, there's this one way we want, you know, okay, Lord, I'm looking for provision, so give me a job, right? Or I'm looking for a husband, so, you know, give me a husband. A lot of the times in the Bible, the Lord provides for you, but that provision, because the kingdom, right? His kingdom is the overall, he's able to see everything, right? Advancing the kingdom. Multiple things will come from that one thing. So yes, Ruth gained a husband. Yes, Naomi gained a redeemer. At the same time, the Lord wasn't just redeeming Ruth and Naomi, he was redeeming their bloodline. And from that bloodline eventually would come Jesus. From that bloodline came King David. And I think that when we put into perspective and we say, okay, Lord, what is your purpose? Why am I here, right? Whatever situation you might be in, you might be looking at, okay, I feel like I've been here forever. I feel like nothing's happening. I feel like I'm going backwards. I feel like as days go on, I have less and less. Jesus already came and he redeemed us. And so, what he was saying to me through this is, just like Naomi, you don't fully understand yet, but there is a purpose to everything. The Lord has a purpose for everything. So I hope that this encourages you. I hope that, what the Lord gave me can give you some joy, can give you some sort of peace and rest. I'm always here. If you want to talk, write in your comments what it is, if you feel comfortable, what you've been going through, and if you need prayer or anything, I'm here. But I just wanted to share this because the Lord really encouraged me through this story, and I hope that he encouraged you through his word.